It's inevitable that at some point your freeze dryer is going to fail and you're going to need to figure out how to repair it yourself to reduce cost, or know what common fixes and patchwork you can purchase to quickly get you back up and running, especially if you run a freeze drying business. Today, you're going to learn what common issues arise with owning a freeze dryer, how to fix them, and the common things that you can purchase as accessories and parts to get you quickly back up and running in your freeze drying business or your home use. And you're going to learn all this through an interview that I had with the owner of FixMyFreezeDryer.com. He also has a YouTube channel. You're going to be thrilled to listen to Donald, who understands these different freeze dryers that are coming to market and currently here today, because he's taken them apart one by one and tested all the vacuums, the chambers, all the different necessary parts to make the freeze dryer run consistently. So we're going to ask him a lot of questions about these freeze dryers and how you can be better equipped to run a freeze drying business and fix the freeze dryers yourself, saving you money. Before I get to the interview with Donald, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel if you're interested in freeze drying or interested in starting a freeze drying business. That's what this channel is all about. Also, if throughout this interview you're loving the content, hit that thumbs up button. It really helps the YouTube algorithm kick it out to more people who would be interested in fixing their freeze dryer and learning about freeze drying. Thanks a lot. Now let's get to the interview with Fix My Freeze Dryer and learn about how to repair your freeze dryer. I'm here today with the owner and founder of Fix My Freeze Dryer. Donald has actually developed different types of products that can help fix your freeze dryer for common issues. We all have different issues that come with our freeze dryer no matter what brand we have. Eventually that's going to happen. And so we're going to talk today to Donald about what he's found out about different freeze dryers, what his experience and background is, and kind of get these questions answered. So Donald, hey, thanks for joining me on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Fix My Freeze Dryer, why you got that started.
So right now I'm actually stationed up here in Alaska. I've been in the military just over 18 years. So I've been Iraq, Afghanistan, all those type of places. When my wife and I came up to Alaska, we actually were introduced to freeze-dried candy from nobody else than my little brother. And so I've always been kind of a risk taker when it comes to businesses and wanting to become an entrepreneur. And so in turn, my wife and I started a freeze-dried company. We got in with a business partner, rented a commercial kitchen within a month of just trying stuff out. We're like, hey, you know what? We're gonna legit try making this work. Within 2 months of running that commercial kitchen, we actually got contacted by nobody else other than Walmart stores here in Alaska. Wow. So everyone's dream when it comes to operating a business or anything else is Walmart at the end of the day, or you're looking at Safeway or Albertsons or something like that. But for us, Walmart came, they were like, hey, can you actually keep up with 8 stores? So there's 9 total in Alaska, but one requires shipping a whole different method because of the way just Alaska is built. They asked if we could and asked if we can upgrade our bags and all that type of stuff. And we're like, hey, you know what? We can make anything happen. In turn, within months, we were in grocery stores, which is everyone's pretty much dream, as we talked about. So working through lovely people at Walmart and everything like that, they helped guide us really as a small business, an Alaska made business. So we got Alaska made certified. They put us right in the candy section, right on an end cap to start off with. Product just went off the shelves. My daughter actually is a designer. She made these bags for us. So you'll see they say freeze fuel. There's a story about a ferry and all of our products all connected together. And it was really meant as, I think this one talks about the Alaska wilderness. And really it just brings Alaskans together, kind of enjoying the product and everything. And I've been contacted from people all over the United States that came up to visit that just love the product that we produced. You know, I went to Utah, learned how to fix freeze dryers because we were operating about 6 large freeze dryers at the time. The extra large machines worn out. Harvest Right, they brought me in. I learned some stuff from there. While I was there, we got talking about the lack of support that is in places such as Alaska or Hawaii. They've done that same type of thing with somebody in Hawaii. So I was kind of just the Alaska guy. Teamed up with Harvest Right after that, and I would be subcontracted to come fix machines for the company. So they would task me with somebody who might be an hour away. I drive that hour, go fix the machine, and then I just send them an invoice for how many hours I worked, and they sent me a check at the end of the day. Yeah, so the three main brands that I've really looked into and had here physically that I've been able to really focus on, right, is the Harvest Right. Looked at anything from the small up to the extra large machine. I've helped fix all those machines in between. Stay Fresh, I have one currently. I've had it about 10 months now. I've also had other people that I know buy those machines and they've used those machines. And then Blue Alpine, I worked with them on getting a machine up here. I did get a discount on the machine. And then I told them I'd give them an honest review of what I kind of thought. I open machines up, right? So you guys will see on my YouTube channel, I open Harvest Right machine up. We talk about how to fix parts. We talk about all that stuff. Stay Fresh, I opened that up. We compared it with the Harvest Right at the time because that was probably the leading competitor for them, and kind of showed what I believed was very high quality parts. And a lot of other comments on my channel have kind of been agreeing with that. And then I did the same thing with Blue Alpine. Me as a member in the military, we always ate off of MREs and stuff like that, meals ready to eat if people aren't tracking that type of stuff. And honestly, they suck. They're not very good tasting for the most part. If you ever had the omelet one, it's absolutely devastating. You never want to eat a memory again. So freeze drying has really upped the game on what people can do when they go hunting, or even like us military members that go out in the field and we are going to be out for a couple of weeks. We can get the strawberries that we want, bananas, the meals that we really want. So for me, a lot of my followers are actually military members or preppers and everything like that. So I try making sure that I give them what I believe to be the best opinion about things that are going on, fixing of machines and stuff like that.
We'll get back to the conversation with Donald in just a second, but I wanted to invite you to take a look at the video description below where I've got links to all the freeze dryers that we're talking about and also different things that are related to freeze drying that could help equip you to be more successful in your freeze drying business. As of this video, I've got over 200 different videos on freeze drying that I've produced on this channel. So take a look at those playlists and different videos if you have more curiosity about freeze drying. Also, I've got links to Donald's business, fixmyfd.com. Now on his website, he's got different parts that we've been talking about and we will continue to talk about in this video. He also offers live video types of consulting for repairs. So you can talk to him directly via video. He'll see your freeze dryer, see the types of issues and try to troubleshoot those for you. Support Donald. Click on the link below to fixmyfd.com. Now let's get back to the conversation with Donald and we'll find out more about how to repair your freeze dryer. Are there major components that have to work no matter what freeze dryer you're going to buy?
Yeah, so condenser, right, where we're going to freeze our food is by far super, super important. And if you turn on that condensing unit, most machines, you'll see there's coils or ice springs that people like to call it. You want to see that pretty much front to back. If you're testing like a used machine, you want to give that enough time to really test that out. You can put a little bit of water inside on the trays. That will also help kind of define those ice rings. Probably the other biggest point would probably just be that vacuum pump. Make sure you look at it, make sure it has clear oil. And the oil should be clear. Like a lot of people like to filter oil and all that stuff. I'm not a big fan of filtering oil. It doesn't look the same as when you put in new oil. I would believe, this is a personal belief, that if you're putting in clear oil and then you're putting in a discolored oil, you're probably not getting the same quality of oil, right? So we all probably wouldn't put used oil in our cars, my guess would be. So why are we doing it with $3, $4, $5+ thousand machines? It only costs maybe about $10 for that oil. You're going to last typically on most of these machines 20 to 30 runs. So really, if you're doing an oil change every 2 months or so, you're spending $10 every 2 months. That's just my personal belief is, don't filter your oil, just put new stuff in and kind of take care of the big investment that you've made in your products.
Does changing the oil in a vacuum pump really matter to the product, or is it more about the overall lifespan of the pump?
Yeah, so changing the vacuum pump oil, it's going to obviously help keep that vacuum pump lasting longer, hopefully keeping it lubricated correctly, all that type of stuff. But also when it has better oil, if you see like cloudiness happening in your oil, it typically means moisture is getting in your oil. And then that means moisture is now inside your pump and you're not going to get a super low vacuum typically. So At one point, I made the mistake, like many freeze dryer people. I opened up the drain and let water suck into my machine. Guess where that goes? It goes straight into your vacuum pump. So in turn, my oil was just completely cloudy. And to really fix that, you guys are going to want to make sure you're doing oil changes on that, right? Empty that oil out. I typically run mine with the new oil for like 5-10 seconds, and then I'll dump it out because I already see it's probably cloudy again. And then there's also vacuum flush that you can get off at Amazon that will help clean out that oil as well. So, but typically after you say if you did have water in there, you want to just give it enough time to really go back to clear, so you're not running anything that might have any moisture at all inside that pump, because it's just metal upon metal in there.
Is it worth it to go with those higher industrial type of pumps that you have to pay a little bit more when you're purchasing a freeze dryer?
So my opinion is, if a company offers you an oilless pump, it's not worth any upgrade costs. Do not spend your $1,800 or whatever. Those are some of the pumps we probably see the biggest issues with. And people are like, hey, I spent $1,800 on this upgrade. Well, you can buy two premier pumps from Harvest Right for the same price. Really, I mean, you're spending half the money, right? Because you're still getting a premier pump with your machine.
Yeah.
So you have a backup pump for $800 or whatever it is. And then that pump, I mean, I used mine for over 2 years, never had really any issues other than issues I created myself. Oilless pumps, they need to be rebuilt. They need all that type of stuff. They shoot off some dark, nasty stuff at the back of them. A lot of customers complain about, they don't like how it hits their wall and stuff. But the Premier pump that Harvest Ray has, I think, is a great pump. I do sell some upgrades to that pump when we could talk about those a little bit later. The Blue Alpine and Stay Fresh kind of one is like a non-spark pump. Their pump is pretty standard, is a standard pump. They don't offer an upgrade that I'm tracking. That pump is going to require more oil changes and everything like that, right? So that's where I like the Premier pump from Harvest Right or an industrial pump from Stay Fresh, is those machines are made to not only be used in freeze drying, but also they're made to last a lot longer in between oil changes, which hopefully will prevent people from wanting to filter oil, because they are able to last. They're not doing 2-3 batches and then changing oil. So in turn, their money wise, yes, they might spend maybe with Harvest Right, I think it's like $600 more or so for that upgraded pump, but you're going to be spending less on oil changes. You have a higher quality. That industrial pump they have is solid metal, things like 60 pounds. So like I've tried finding those pumps. They obviously, most of these pumps are made in China, some other places. I've reached out to China to try providing those pumps for my customers. However, for me to get them here in the US is like $1,500. And then obviously I'd have to find out, hey, how am I going to ship it, everything else. So it didn't make any money sense for us to bring those pumps. Stay Fresh does now offer that industrial pump on their website if somebody wants to upgrade to that in the future. And I talked to Tim about making sure that was an option if somebody did want to do an upgrade like that.
Yeah, I've got one of their industrials for the Stay Fresh. I did upgrade to that, and it's running phenomenal. So, yeah, I definitely like that. And the premium pump, I actually bought in 2020 when I bought my first Harvest Right. I went with the oilless. I paid that $1,600. It wasn't worth it to me. I didn't really see the value in it over kind of like 6 months to a year. Once they came out with the premium pump for $600, it was like, man, I could buy 3 of those and it runs great. So what are the common issues most freeze dryers are going to have? No matter what brand you buy, they're eventually going to break down in these key areas.
The biggest issues we typically see are vacuum pull issues, right? So you can do it on any of the machines if you don't have the gasket properly installed on the machine, if you don't have the tubes installed properly on the machine to the vacuum pump and into the other machine. Those are obviously fail points that are a user type error, right? But a lot of those things we can also adjust doors. We can do that type of stuff to affect it. The drain valve on the Harvest Right, I would upgrade people. I tell people all the time to kind of upgrade that part to a higher quality part. The Blue Alpine one had a very good quality one from my experience, and the Stay Fresh had a very good quality one. So I don't really do that on any of the other machines. However, if you don't close that valve, you're also not going to get a vacuum. So sometimes when I'm troubleshooting with people, and I do a lot of video chats with people, they're forgetting to maybe close that little spot there. And, I don't want them to feel stupid. They probably do sometimes, but like, hey, it happens to all of us. I've done it before myself, and I'm like, hey, why isn't this thing vacuuming? So, but adjusting the door is a huge thing. I see a lot of people on a lot of Facebook groups that say, hey, pull out your gasket and then shut your door and you don't have to worry about it. Well, I'm lazy and I don't want to pull out a gasket for the next year to always make sure I got a vacuum. I would rather adjust my door. Should only be about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. And you can adjust your door to make that happen on any of these machines. That's going to turn around and just let you close that door and just have a good vacuum seal on that gasket. So I'm not a big fan of, hey, pulling out gaskets. I'm a fan of fixing the machine and making sure it's running right when it comes to that. But vacuum issues are by far the issues I've had with 2 out of the 3 machine brands, right? My bread and butter, honestly, with Fix My FD is working on Harvest Right machines. And that has to deal with a couple of vacuum points that unfortunately happen on those machines. Inside the machine, if somebody takes apart that machine, you'll see the wires coming out of the drum. It's called an epoxy harness. A lot of people will see a ton of Teflon tape wrapped in there. That's not what you want to see. You really want to take that off, re-put Teflon tape that's made for gas. The one that is, if it's white on there, it's really just made for water. So you'll want to readjust that. Just put 3 rounds of Teflon tape on it, crank that down. The person who can't crank it down the most is what we really want to happen, is because you should be able to still get a nice, good seal with that done properly.
So how do I fix a vacuum leak?
For one, I always freeze my machine before I ever test my machine. And the reason being is there could be water within that machine. And when you turn on that vacuum, it's going to get sucked into your vacuum. And we don't want any moisture going in there. So I always turn on the freeze. For one, when your machine always goes into your freeze drying mode, it's already cold anyway. So why not just do it how we normally always operate our machines? The biggest thing is, though, you can verify a lot of times if you put a little bit of water on the drain hose, you'll see water maybe seep up into your machine. And in turn, you know that your drain valve is possibly having a leak there. So you're definitely going to want to replace that area.
So just take like a cup of water and put the drain hose kind of like in it just to see if some water gets sucked up in there.
Yeah, so I've seen some people put like food coloring in there so that way they can obviously see it better. Obviously, you don't want a lot of water because that's eventually going to go in your pump, right?
Right.
But it can definitely help you out there. Always looking at the gasket, as we talked about. If you don't have a good ring about that gasket, you're not going to have a good seal. You're not going to get down to a low mTOR. So the one thing about Stay Fresh is they use KF25 fittings, which a lot of people, and I don't have any sitting at my desk today, but a lot of people don't know that's really, it's clamps that clamp down into a plastic, and it's a very, very good fitting. I just talked to a company 2 days ago. They were looking at building a freeze dryer and everything, and they were like, oh, we didn't even think about KF25 fittings, and they want to explore that option on the freeze dryer that they're currently working on as well. So pretty industry like high standard is probably those KF25 fittings. Everybody I've talked to has been super impressed by those. And then when we move to the Harvest Right, there's a couple of leak points that are happening in the Harvest Right. We've already talked about the drain valve. We talked about the epoxy harness. Other spot we typically see, if you have an older Harvest Right, there's actually a 90-degree fitting where you're putting your vacuum hose, and that fitting, the O-ring can go out in that fitting. So that can obviously cause you a leak. We do sell upgraded 90-degree fittings. They actually are metal to metal fittings, so they don't have an O-ring like the one that Harvest Right actually has built. However, they're slightly smaller, so they're a little harder to get on, and they rub up right against your machine hole. So I do give people that kind of notice. I wasn't able to find anything, and it's extremely expensive to custom make metal parts. The Harvest Right vacuum hose. So a lot of people know Harvest Right has JIC fittings. It says right on the back of the machine they have JIC fittings. Unfortunately, they don't give people a JIC fitted vacuum hose. So JIC fittings should be a metal to metal connection that pretty much locks in and seals all that air that's coming in and out of that machine. What's happening is you guys, Harvest Right has a standard, almost like a garden hose with a gasket that's locking into that JIC fitting, and you're hoping that gasket doesn't go bad or that gasket's, not over tightened, under tightened, all that type of stuff. So on our site, we actually sell upgraded JIC fitted hoses that are made, that we have custom made for these machines. A lot of times people will be like, hey, I tighten it by hand. That's what Harvest Right says to do. Well, with a JIC fitted hose, you actually have to use a wrench to make sure it's on there nice and tight, to make sure that metal to metal connection is actually happening. If you don't get it tight enough, you could always have a small leak.
On fixmyfd.com, what do you sell for fixing vacuum leaks?
We sell a vacuum leak fix. So it has a drain valve in it to replace that drain valve and most of this is for the Harvest Right machine. Most of the fixes we do sell. The Harvest Right machine, I sell vacuum fix leaks on a very normal basis, unfortunately. But it has that drain valve that we talked about. We add the Teflon tape, and then we send stretch and seal and then some silicone. That one kit will do a complete vacuum fix on your Harvest Right machine. Awesome. I tell people all the time, hey, if you have 2-3 machines, hey, order 2-3 fixes, because it's going to be enough stretch and seal to handle your machines, and you'll probably have enough silicone and Teflon tape for sure for other machines. But it does have that drain valve and then the stretch and seal that you will need for every machine.
And as far as instructions go for using that kit, I know you have a video on your YouTube channel that I would tell people to go to. I'll include that in the video description of this video. What's kind of that process look like for somebody who gets your kit?
So most people that have our kits or get our kits are already tracking our YouTube channel. And that's really where we send everybody for the video, right? Is making sure they're doing that vacuum fix.
I've noticed all the pumps now, even with the premium pump with Harvest Right, we've got the Stay Fresh, we got the Blue Alpine. They have these demisters. What is a point of a demister?
Those right there is really the air and everything, the moisture, the extra moisture that might be in your pump that's coming out. So a lot of people will sometimes say they have like a fog in their room or something like that. And really what it is there's moisture within their pump that's coming out of the pump. I'm not a fan of fog. We worked really, really hard and spent thousands of dollars trying to find a way to get rid of that fog, right? A lot of people are like, oh, it doesn't mean nothing. Well, as somebody who was deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and I breathed in burn pits nonstop, and some people claimed for the longest time it wasn't harmful to our health, and obviously we know that's not the case anymore. I don't want my kids breathing in some type of smoke or fume or whatever. I want to make sure it's probably as clean as we possibly can. So if you look at the Stay Fresh, they have a KF25 filter. And those are pretty standard when you look at industrial type pumps, is those type of filters. The Harvest Right one is pretty just a standard pump. That pump's made by NAVAC. I've done a lot of research on that pump. The pumps really weren't made to do freeze drying, and adding that filter kind of allowed us to do freeze drying the way we kind of do. It allows that. It's like a cold air intake on a truck. People get more horsepower out of their truck, but we went with a KF40 filter, which is even bigger. Very rarely do we have people say, hey, I kind of have some smoke. And I typically say, hey, let it run a little bit. You might have just a lot of moisture from prior runs and everything like that. But we also got to remember all these things are made out of metal. Even the filters of Harvest Right or even my filters, they have some form of metal in them. So I always tell people, hey, get an extra filter. Make sure you look at them, let them dry out. It's not, those filters aren't made out of stainless steel. I've tried reaching out to manufacturers to see if I can get them made with that. And if you want a stainless steel one, they're $400 or $500 without any adapters or anything else.
What's one of the reasons why someone like yourself would recommend each brand? Let's start with the Harvest Right. Why would you recommend the Harvest Right? Is there a reason for that?
We have fixes for anything that might happen with the Harvest Right. That's the one reason I tell people there's a lot of support for Harvest Right. to include our channel, right? So if you're going to get a harvest right, the support is there, and the support is developing even more as our company grows. We're working on solid state relays to replace mechanical relays, to get better CPU boards, to get better screens, and working on new software to actually take over Harvest Right's current software that many people are tired of seeing upgrades every week, 2 weeks of that software. So our company, along with another company that I'm working with, is really developing software and upgrades to those machines to make it from that Windows to an Apple. It's a good machine when you have it running and have everything done. I think it's an excellent machine, especially they're always offering deals on them, right? So if you ever see that they're not offering a sale, I just tell you, wait the 2 weeks. They'll have a sale. They always have them. Be prepared to possibly work with some of these Facebook groups or myself or anybody, so we can just get you the next level to make sure that machine is running as efficient as possible. So if you're running a business, you're making as much money as possible. Or if you're saving up food because you're worried about something happening, that you're just able to get that machine running to provide enough food for your family.
And then let's talk about what's a reason you would recommend Stay Fresh freeze dryers.
I actually just recently had my shelving system heater go out on that system. And I contacted Stay Fresh, which actually gets you a hold of the owner of the company. I was surprised on this a year ago, and I'm still surprised today. This is how this works. I talked to him about it, and he said, "Hey, Donald, do you have a multimeter?" And I was like, "No, I don't even know what one of those really are, man. I'm a police officer in the military. Like, I learned how to do this stuff a lot from Harvest Right, and I give those guys a lot of credit. For me, the customer service has been tremendous. Tim has been tremendous. Just doing those small things that I've seen him happen. He's managed to build the company that is kind of what it is, still on a one-man like customer service shop. And you don't see them getting blasted on Facebook groups that I've seen anyway. They're doing something right. They just released that mega unit, which has been delayed and delayed and delayed. And I asked him the other day, I was like, "Hey, why was the machine delayed so much? Like, you guys obviously could have released this machine." And he wanted to make sure it was right. He wanted to make sure he knew how much ice capacity he had. He wanted to make sure that the trays were working correctly the way he wanted to see and everything else. And I said, "You know what? I can respect that. You weren't trying to rush into it, get your money as fast as you could. You wanted to make sure that machine was right." I'm definitely looking forward to testing out that mega unit. I haven't had a chance to do it yet.
Yeah.
With it, when a company's willing to delay a product to make sure they get it right, they're not chasing after every dollar. And, the good thing about Blue Alpine is, you know, they're assembling all those machines in the United States.
Yes.
So from my understanding, all those machines are being assembled in the US. None of the other companies are currently doing that. And that's one thing I told Blue Alpine early on is, you know, I like the fact that the company was trying to build everything in the US, right? And they're keeping the United States, built in the US. Sure, not all the products are going to be able to come. All the components are going to be able to come from the US. I'm happy to see that they're trying their best to keep those built in Idaho.
How do you clear out all the clutter, and what advice do you give for people that I really want to get into freeze drying? I really think I have a good recipe. So
my biggest advice is don't worry about what other people are doing. Worry about you, worried about your goal, your path, your everything else, right? So if you're somebody who is seriously considering taking on freeze drying and grabbing it, right? Go get yourself some nice bags developed. You want to make sure people know your brand. Like, don't be like everybody else that you see that just has little stickers on stuff. No one knows your brand. When people see this bag, they know, hey, this is coming from a quality company. I've had it before. You know, we were in many, many states at the same time when we were doing that. And unfortunately, that just didn't happen very well. Our business partner and us separated ways and everything else. But I think we were doing almost $18,000 to $20,000 a month in wholesale. Don't be afraid to worry about volume, right? Get into these gas stations, get into your wholesale shows, get into all this type of stuff. Remember, though, it costs money to make money or to do business or whatever. But if you don't want to eat, breathe, sleep your business, definitely reconsider it. I had somebody ask me the other day, they're like, "Hey, I think about getting in a coffee business." "Oh, how much do you like coffee?" "Oh, it's pretty good." "No," I said, "How much do you like it?" "Oh, I think it's good." "Don't do it." Like, you have to love
Yeah.
this. You have to want to eat, breathe, and everything else. You have to be ready to run and operate this business. It's gonna take over your life. And if it's not, then you're not doing something right, most likely. You know, you have another hour of your day where you can be doing something. And if you're somebody who's like, oh, I don't have that time, well, think about the TV show you just got done watching, because that time that you just took is time that you could be working on developing your company. So that's probably my biggest thing, is be ready to eat, breathe, sleep your company, and don't be afraid to admit you failed and reach out to somebody. There's plenty of people that want to see you succeed, and it doesn't matter where they come from. And you can always send me an email, fixmyfd.com. There's a contact link, or admin@fixmyfd.com. And I don't have a problem helping people try figuring out the waves of a business. Really, I want to see people succeed at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, we all are small business for the most part, and we all got to try supporting each other.
I say this all the time on the channel and a lot of my videos. This is the beginning stages, I think, of a huge industry that was kind of dormant for a long time. I just think it's a great time to start a business, and the barrier to entry price-wise, I mean, now you have, I think there's 5 different freeze dryer companies now. You know, you have a lot of options. They're all improving all their machines. So it's not like
And
you have to-
there's more coming out. I promise
Exactly.
you that. I just got off the phone with one 2 days ago, and I've been working on one with another company that's not even in the United States currently, on a whole nother system. So there's more coming very, very soon.
Donald, where do we go to connect with you? How do we get in contact with you?
Yeah, so fixmyfd.com is by far the best way. You guys will see tray stackers on there. You guys will see all the fixed stuff that we kind of talked about today is all on that website. If you have issues with a freeze dryer, connect with me on there. I'll walk you through all that stuff. And there's times where I'm just like, hey, go to Home Depot. You're going to be able to get this or whatever. I'm not all about trying to sell stuff to people. I want you guys having quality machines that are running at the end of the day. We all need to be taking care of each other and making sure that, you know, we're taking care of each other in that aspect.
We'll get back to the conversation with Donald in just a second, but I wanted to invite you to take a look at the video description below, where I've got links to all the freeze dryers that we're talking about, and also different things that are related to freeze drying that could help equip you to be more successful in your freeze drying business. As of this video, I've got over 200 different videos on freeze drying that I've produced on this channel. So take a look at those playlists and different videos if you have more curiosity about freeze drying. Also, I've got links to Donald's business, fixmyfd.com. Now, on his website, he's got different parts that we've been talking about and we will continue to talk about in this video. He also offers live video types of consulting for repairs. So you can talk to him directly via video. He'll see your freeze dryer, see the types of issues, and try to troubleshoot those for you. Support Donald. Click on the link below to fixmyfd.com. Now let's get back to the conversation with Donald, and we'll find out more about how to repair your freeze dryer. There's so many more opportunities to learn about freeze drying and entrepreneurship in the freeze drying industry. Check out the next couple videos in the thumbnails. I'll see you there.